Bonjour tout le monde. All right, so we're going to do things a little bit differently this semester. We're not changing too much, so everything will be okay. But I'm hoping to make things a lot better and a lot easier for you guys. So instead of me voicing over my PowerPoints for instructional purposes, I am going to be recording these little videos for you guys so that you guys can benefit better from the instructions, seeing me write some examples on the board, almost like you're in the classroom with us. And so what we're doing for this week back is we are going to be doing some review. And it is especially important to do this review because everybody's kind of coming from a little bit different of a spot. Some people were in person the whole time. Some people are coming back to in person from being distanced this whole time. So I want to just make sure that everybody has the same understanding and the same opportunities to learn the material and be better prepared moving forward. So first we're going to start with articles. So we talked about articles back at the very beginning of French 1. And remember, there are two different kinds. There are definite and indefinite articles. And remember, definite articles are the equivalent of the word the in English. So when we say the cat, the dog, the table, the book, we're referencing a specific object, a specific item or person or something like that. So it's defined, it's definite. But when it comes to indefinite, that would be the equivalent of a or an. When we say a cat, a dog, a book, a person, then it is undefined. We don't know exactly what person we're talking about, what book we're talking about, what cat or dog we're talking about. So that one is indefinite since it's not defined. And again, that corresponds with a and an in English. So starting out, we learned very basic vocabulary, a lot of cognates. If you guys don't remember what cognates are, they are words that look the same in French and English. Might be spelled slightly different, but they look very similar and they have similar definitions. All right, so for example, we have un examen, which is an exam. Again, cognates are words that look very similar in both French and English. So we have the word exam in this word, just like in English and in French. So we know that this is the word for an exam or a test in French. And when we have this article in front of it, that is the indefinite article. So we're saying a test, an exam. So we're talking about just a random test or a random exam that might happen or might be occurring. But if we talk about l'examen with the L apostrophe, now, as I mentioned previously, everything has a gender in French. So when it comes to we know that examen has to be masculine. And it will stay masculine continuously and always have a masculine article, regardless of if you're using definite or indefinite. So in this case, we have which is the masculine indefinite article. In this case, it would be le. Le is the masculine indefinite article, or the masculine definite article, excuse me. But in French, we have this little thing where if something starts with a vowel, which remember vowels A, E, I, O, U, and also Y. Y in French is considered a vowel. If it starts with a vowel, then you'll have this little thing where we have an L apostrophe. And that's for masculine or feminine. If it starts with a vowel, it's going to become L apostrophe. And it's called elision, but it's basically like kind of a contraction. So instead of saying le examen, it sounds very choppy and it doesn't flow very well together. We say l'examen, and it just sounds very nice together and it flows very smoothly. And that's one of the purposes of French, is to make everything sound very pretty and very nice. So since we know that eczema is masculine, we know that it has to go with the masculine definite article. So this one would be saying the exam. All right, so that is an example with a masculine object. Now, still having the same definition, definite articles are the, indefinite articles are a or an, but let's take a different object. Table. If I say une table, that means that it is feminine. So remember, masculine was un, and feminine is une. So une table, it's got the une in front of it. We know that it has to be feminine. And most things in French, and again, as with everything, there are exceptions, but most things in French, if it ends with E, then it's definitely going to be a feminine object. So like table, bibliothèque, those are some ones that we learned that were feminine, and they do end with E. There are exceptions, so make sure, again, that you're learning the gender with the vocabulary word when you learn them. So with une table, that is the indefinite article, we're saying a table. With the definite article, we had le for masculine, and we have la for feminine. La table. So now we're referencing a specific table. We know exactly which table we're talking about. If your mom says, put it on a table, you could put something on any table that's in the room. If she said, put it on the table, then you know she's referencing a specific table, probably the dining table or something like that. So this is the difference between the articles in French. Now, it is still important to know whether something is masculine or feminine. And just like when we had l'eczema, where we had the L apostrophe for a masculine thing, even if we had something that was feminine, we would still have this L apostrophe thing going on because of the vowel at the beginning. So ami, remember, is the feminine form for friend. So masculine form without an E, feminine form with an E. And we're talking about a person here, so we know that it's got to be feminine. And even though it's feminine, it still can have the L apostrophe because of the vowel that comes in front of it. So it might be like this for feminine, or it might be like this if it starts with a vowel. So you do still need to know the genders when you learn all of your vocabulary words, because that will be important later on with adjectives and conjugating verbs and all that kind of stuff. And the very last thing that we need to talk about is, what if we're talking about more than one thing? So regardless of whether our thing is feminine or masculine, we have, again, still our definite and indefinite articles respectively. So for this one, we're saying some tables, because that would be the equivalent in English when it's plural. Some tables, some exams. Again, it's undefined, it's not very specific, and we don't have to concern ourselves with knowing exactly what it's talking about because it is indefinite. But when we say les tables or les examens, then we know we're talking about these specific tables, these specific exams. And so you might have heard this little phenomenon. It's called liaison. We have something a little bit special. We don't have the L apostrophe that we saw in the singular form, but we have a pronunciation phenomenon. So listen carefully and you might be able to hear it. Les tables, les examens. Des tables, des examens. So you guys have already learned that in French pronunciation, when for most final consonants like S's and T's and things like that, in French, they're not pronounced. But in these cases right here, les tables, or les examens, des examens, We are pronouncing this final S on both of these as a Z sound. And this is called liaison in French. You don't have to know the technical terms for these things. Just know when you're pronouncing something, if it's followed by a vowel, then you are going to pronounce it. If it doesn't have a vowel, then you don't pronounce it. This is des tables, des examens. So the pronunciation changes just a little bit, and some of you guys might want to start practicing how to say things in French. Eventually we will have, speaking quizzes and things like that, and you do speak in class. And so you might feel more comfortable if you know some of these speaking patterns that French has. All right, very good. So when you learn your vocabulary words in French, and you've probably already seen this since this whole thing is review, make sure you learn the gender of every single object, because even though it's the same, des, les, regardless of masculine, feminine, just plural, it's the same. When you come to make, agreement with adjectives and things like that later on in the next lesson, then that will help you to make proper agreement and to, make it easier for you to learn the French and learn new vocabulary next time. All right, so as always, if you guys have any questions, please let me know, and au revoir.